When Smash 64 released, it was apparent there was 3 incredible characters out the gate. Pikachu, Kirby, and Ness? It doesn't line up with the current N64 tier list, where years later Ness would actually become a bottom tier character, going from top 3 to bottom 3 in the span of 2008 to 2015. Ness was heavily overrated to the point where he would actually be nerfed in between the release of the Japanese and NTSC versions of the game, and some people think he got nerfed way too hard because later on it would lead to him falling off to the bottom of the tier list and eventually even get nerfed further in Melee, but that's a separate video. Which is why Ness is actually higher on the Japanese tier list at 5th place, while on the NTSC tier list he's at 10th place. The reason why people thought Ness was so good is his normals and aerials are actually pretty good. His up tilt and up air being easy combo tools, and with his double jump canceling he can actually combo people in the air pretty well. His up special has more frames of intangibility, larger hitboxes, and it's actually faster. All of his smash attacks in the Japanese version are stronger, dealing more damage, and they're actually really quick in Smash 64. In a sense, Ness was a solid character, but unfortunately his early success led to him being nerfed in the NTSC version, which led to the character falling to the bottom tier. Not only that, the character's flaws began to be figured out, like his exploitable recovery and actual lackluster range. For those wondering what makes a character overrated, it's a character that has a high amount of usage when the game comes out, but when the meta develops or when a character gets nerfed, they usually fall off from where they were previously. Sometimes these characters are at the top of the meta very early on, then fall off as time passes, which moves us to the next character. Some of you might be double taking, what are you talking about? Mario being overrated in Melee? He's clearly a mid tier. Well, on Melee's very first tier list all the way back in 2002, Mario was considered a top 5 level character. In fact, all the Mario brothers were in the top 10. Mario being the best, Luigi being the second best, and Doc being the third out of the trio. Now, it's pretty obvious this was way back in the day when players barely even knew the depths of Melee's engine. It was an uneducated time for sure, but this stuff is part of Melee's history, and this would be the building blocks of Melee's meta in the future. So of course I'm going to cover how people thought Mario was a top level character at top 5. I geek out over this type of thing. A lot of this has to do with people sleeping on characters like Captain Falcon, Yoshi, Peach, Jigglypuff. It's kind of funny that they thought these characters were mid to low tiers. Mario is overall very nimble with a projectile and strong aerials, and compared to Dr. Mario, he has a stronger recovery. He has a cape which is a reliable reflecting tool, and he's just in general a really simple but effective character. And if you're trying to learn the game, he's actually not a bad character to do that with. Down smash for the win, baby. However, obviously as the meta progressed, people realized the flaws of Mario, like without his fireball, he has terrible range. His grab range is plain awful to this day, and while his recovery has utility, it's just way too slow, so characters can easily edgeguard him. He's actually not as strong as what people thought, and over time, despite Doc having the worst recovery, some people would end up preferring him because Dr. Mario struggles less with KOing. And you even just could play a top tier like Sheik, who has plenty of more range than Mario, better grab range, recovery, KO power. Mario isn't a terrible character, as he would later land in the mid tier in Melee's most recent tier list, which shows yes, he has flaws, but he does have a small dedicated fan base who still use Melee Mario, so shoutouts to them. For Brawl, I decided to cheat and include 2 characters, one for casual play and one for competitive play. Thank honest content for this one, subscribe. The one for casual play was easily Ike, just to cut to the chase, pun intended there. Ike was sort of a noob character when the game first released. He's kind of like future characters we'll talk about in this video, where he's just really strong and played by many people early on because his attacks are just unga bunga. You can spam smash attacks in neutral, aerials have great amounts of range. He was even a solid character in competitive play, being roughly in the same spot even during Brawl's very first tier list, but people figured out some of the flaws for Ike, like him being a heavyweight, his below average speed, and how he gets beat by projectile spammers. Despite this, he was basically known as being a casual centric character that wasn't really amazing in competitive play, while a character who fell off Brawl's tier list in the early days was actually Rob. This would be an example of the importance of learning a matchup. As Rob was a very projectile-centric character, Brawl's also the game where Rob debuted, so he was brand new. And those early Brawl tier lists where the meta was less developed, it's interesting to see that Rob was actually top 6, and later on he would fall to 18th on the most recent Brawl tier list. Rob essentially was a matchup people didn't really understand the ins and outs for, and then has characters like Meta Knight and Ice Climbers who would get more developed, and this would lead to Rob being outclassed, as his projectile camping game was not as strong as people thought, and Rob has plenty of blind spots when he uses his projectiles. Before Little Mac made his way into Smash, he was a beloved character that people wanted to be in the game, and the day finally came. Little Mac made his debut in Smash 4, but with an interesting twist. It was made clear in the trailer that Little Mac was a character with extremely powerful, fast smash attacks, but to quote the trailer word for word, he's not an air fighter. What does that mean? Well, according to the trailer, Little Mac has a terrible recovery and bad aerials, but he's a character that is powerful, even being able to have a comeback mechanic, with that being the KO punch, where Little Mac, if he's getting punished or dealing percent on the opponent, his KO meter will increase over time. Well, when Little Mac came out, he turned heads because he was actually used a lot in a casual level. Sakurai stated in interviews at the time that Little Mac was one of the most used characters in Smash 4's For Glory mode. For those who don't remember, the glorious game mode, it was basically Little Mac's backyard cookout because the only stage available was Final Destination. Little Mac's best stage by far was the only stage in Smash 4's only competitive game mode. He can die from a simple edge guard, he's pretty much doomed, and if he fails an approach, get ready to get back thrown off stage and then get hit and say goodbye. It's extremely easy to punish his tools with the high amounts of end lag like side B or dash attack. He's a rather strange character, which is why I'm going to expose the trailer for a second. They kinda lied. Yes, Little Mac's recovery, it's terrible for sure. Most of his aerials are also bad, but then there's his nair, which is tied for one of the fastest nairs in the game. Yeah, if you see a Little Mac combo video, I guarantee you'll see this move at least once. It can actually catch people off guard, as it's very quick. His smash attacks have low amounts of end lag, they combo into each other, they can all KO consistently, and forward smash and up smash have armor. It goes without saying it's pretty obvious why this character was highly used, except in reality, he actually wasn't that good. Once you play around the strengths of the character, he can be systematically bullied, and this led to him mostly being seen as a low tier character despite being one of the most common characters in For Glory mode. In reality, he wasn't really that good and would eventually get a handful of nerfs, and then he would get some buffs in the future, but it didn't really help him all that much. He's an example of a easy character to pick up and play, but a hard character to master due to his flaws. This character was highly requested by many Smash fans. Many people didn't like how this popular character was constantly sidelined to being a Mii costume or even being part of another character's final Smash before they actually became a real character. And well, this character finally made it into Smash Ultimate as a clone, no less. It's Chrom. Chrom out the gate was actually a beloved character. Chrom being a clone of Roy meant both the two characters were acclaimed as some of the best characters in Smash Ultimate's roster when the game first came out. Many people made early tier lists, and Chrom was constantly at least put at the top 4 at plenty of fan-made top player tier lists. Considering Roy and Chrom are Echo Fighters, they share similar combo flows, while their main difference is their up specials. Roy has the more consistent up special, which is shorter but has way more mobility, and on top of that, Roy can actually kind of land a little bit more consistently because of this. While Chrom's up special is limited. People realized that his up special was a problem rather quickly, and they didn't realize how bad a flaw this would become for Chrom later on. His up special is really strict. Chrom can't even move that much while he's using it. On top of that, the move sends Chrom directly below, similar to Ike's up special, so if he misses the ledge, he just dies. It really sucks. Because of this, it became a really easy up special to edgeguard. It's so bad, it's clearly one of the worst up specials in the game. Roy doesn't have this problem at all, so this led to people praising Chrom's speed and aggression, but stating that Roy would probably be the more consistent character long term because of his better recovery. And Chrom had a well-known early combo that actually used his up special that was in the early days of Smash Ultimate's meta. This combo would end up being nerfed in a future update, as now Chrom loses his stock first if he trades and KOs an opponent with this up special. The move makes Chrom fall faster now, the hitbox receive reduced knockback, knockback. As a result, this makes the move more likely to miss. They really did gut this move in a future balance patch. And over time, this strengthened the flaws of Chrom even more. He was one of the most promising characters during the release of Smash Ultimate, but quickly fell to the B+ tier, which is a huge drop from when people thought he was a top 4 character in the game. This also was a huge turn for Smash Ultimate's meta, as characters like Ike and Chrom fell in usage, while characters like Roy and Lucina rose in popularity. And ironically, Roy, Chrom's clone, who was seen as a great character during the early days of Smash Ultimate, and Roy actually maintained being a top level character to this day at the 8th place, while Chrom is all the way at 43rd. If you guys want to support the channel in any way, there's a Patreon down below where you get videos early, and channel members also get videos early as well. So thank you guys so much for the support.